What's a story, amigos? This is Kino with some cool stories for today's story time.
Today, Sharon Lawrence reads about a girl and her grandmother's cat.
He hides, I seek. He scoots, I peek.
Then the story of a friendship between an old woman and a brown puppy.
Go home, she called to the puppy. The puppy wagged its tail when it saw her. Go home, she called again, but the puppy just kept wagging.
And finally, Tina Majorino reads about Flag, a dog lost in the desert, and his owner, a girl who doesn't lose hope.
Dad, please, Flag's still out there, waiting for us to come find him. I know he is.
Storytime is made possible by Bill Grant and Helen and Peter Bain, so that families everywhere can share the joy of reading with their children.
Smartest dog I've ever seen. Who taught the dog those tricks?
My Uncle Johnny. He's an animal trainer. I asked him if I could keep Champ for a day or two.
Oh, that's cool.
Being with Champ makes me wish I had a pet. Come. Come, here. Come. Good. What do you think, Kino? Should I ask my mom for a pet?
Oh, you want a pet? And you have to take care of him, you know.
I do want one. And of course I'll take care of it. I'm just not sure what kind I should get. What kind do you think I should ask for?
I think you should get a dog. Then you can teach it tricks like this, see? Woof, woof, woof.
Good boy, Kino.
Oh, that's nothing. Watch this. Throw that ball over this way. Ruff, ruff.
Oh, Kino, what on earth are you doing?
We're pretending he's a dog doing tricks.
Oh.
Good boy, Kino. Here's a peanut.
I see. Well, this is Sharon, and she's brought a wonderful book.
Hi, Sharon.
Hi, Sharon.
Hi, everyone. This is a book about a cat. Would you like to hear it?
Sure.
Oh, yeah, sure.
It's called Grandma's Cat, and it's written by Helen Ketteman and illustrated by Marcia Lynn Winborn. Grandma's cat is round and fat. Oh, who's my sweet little fuzzball then? He hides, I seek. He scoots, I peek. He climbs a tree, and I scrape my knee. He's up the stair, and I chase him there. I pounce, but miss. He gives a hiss. He's on the rail. I grab his tail. He claws my nose. I yell. He goes. There. Just be very gentle and sweet to him, and he will like you. He's near the gate. I stop, then wait. I stoop down low. He starts to go. I speak. He hears. He turns his ears. Kitty, 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 kitty. I bring a treat, and he likes to eat. He tastes. He stays. I stroke. He plays. I sit, I clap. Where is everybody? He tries my lap. His tail has burrs. I pick. He purrs. Nighty-night, my dearies. That night in bed, I scratch his head. He purrs again. I've made a friend. The end. What do you think now, Christy?
I think that an animal can be your friend, but you have to treat it right.
That's right. Well, that's what the little girl learned, huh? That you can't treat a pet the way you treat your stuffed animals.
I'm good with animals because I can pretend I'm an animal, see? I can think like an animal, just like this, see?
Oh,
I was thinking like a cat, so I purred because I liked the story.
Maybe you can be my pet, Kino.
Oh, no. I'm nobody's pet except my mom's, and that's the way we want to keep it.
Come on, Kino, be my pet.
No, I'm very busy just being Kino. Oh, let's just be friends. Oh, Lucy, I think Christy should hear the story of the old lady and the puppy with no name.
oh, good idea. I'll get it.
Are you sure?
Be your pet? No way. See, one good thing about getting a pet is that you make a new friend, the pet. And I'm already your friend.
But you make such a cute little pet, Kino.
Thanks, but it's no just the same.
Sharon, would you like to read this story?
Oh, I'd love to. This one's called The Old Woman Who Named Things. It's by Cynthia Ryland and illustrated by Catherine Brown. Once there was an old woman who loved to name things. She named the old car she drove Betsy. She named the old chair she sat in Fred. She named the old bed she slept on Roxanne. And she named her old house Franklin. Every morning she would get out of Roxanne, have a cup of cocoa in Fred, lock up Franklin, and drive to the post office in Betsy. She always hoped for a letter from someone, but all she ever got was bills. The reason the old woman never got any letters was because she had outlived every single one of her friends. This worried her. She didn't like the idea of being a lonely old woman without any friends, without anyone whom she could call by name. So, she began to name things. She named only those things that she knew she could never outlive. Her car, Betsy, had more get up and go than anything around. Her chair, Fred, had never sagged a day in his life. Not one creak or moan had she ever heard out of her old bed, Roxanne. And her house, Franklin, had been standing straight for over 100 years and still didn't look a day past 20. The old woman never worried about outliving any of them, and her days were happy. One day when the old woman was out soaping some mud off Betsy, telling her that Franklin wouldn't want to be seen with a car that didn't keep its bumpers a little cleaner, a shy, brown puppy came to the old woman's gate. The old woman had not named the gate because 2 of its hinges had rusted off and she could tell the gate wasn't long for this world. The shy brown puppy wagged its tail. It looked a little hungry. The old woman stood beside Betsy and watched the puppy for a while. She said. Then she walked into Franklin and got a chunk of ham from her refrigerator and came back outside. The old woman gave the ham to the hungry puppy and told it to go home. She told it that Betsy always made puppies sick And Fred never allowed puppies to sit on him. And Roxanne wasn't wide enough for a puppy and an old woman to fit on. And besides all of this, Franklin couldn't tolerate dog hair. So the puppy went away. But the next day, the puppy was back. The old woman was sitting in Fred reading a book on everlasting flowers when she saw the puppy through her window. "Go home," she called to the puppy. The puppy wagged its tail when it saw her. "Go home," she called again, but the puppy just kept wagging. The old woman noticed that it still looked a little hungry, so she went to her refrigerator. She gave the puppy a hunk of cheese and 2 biscuits. Then she told it to go home. The puppy went away. That night, as the old woman plumped up the pillows on Roxanne, she thought about the puppy. It was a very nice puppy, she thought. It was a very pretty puppy, she thought. But it couldn't stay. If it stayed, she'd have to give it a name. And it could never last as long as Franklin or Fred or Betsy or Roxanne. She might outlive it. And she didn't want to risk that. No, she did not want to outlive any more friends. She would just keep telling it to go home. Every day, the shy brown puppy came to the old woman's gate. Every day, she fed it and told it to go home. And always it went away, and always it came back the next day. This went on for many months. The puppy got bigger and bigger until soon it wasn't a puppy anymore. It was a dog. And it was still a dog with no name. In all this time, the old woman had gotten a new dresser that she had named Bill, a new wheelbarrow that she had named Francine, and a new concrete pig for her garden that she had named Bud. But the dog she faithfully fed at her gate every day still had no name. Since it had no name, the old woman didn't have to worry about outliving it. And she thought herself pretty clever in this. Then one day, the shy brown dog did not come to the old woman's house. She sat in Fred and watched the gate all day long. But the dog never came. The old woman felt sad. The next day again, the dog did not come. The old woman drove Betsy around town looking for the dog, but she did not find it. The old woman felt even sadder. The following day, when still the dog did not come, the old woman knew she had to do something. She picked up her telephone, and she called the dog catcher. "Have you caught any shy brown dogs?" the old woman asked the dog catcher. "We got a whole kennel full of shy brown dogs, ma'am," said the dog catcher. "Was yours wearing a collar with its name on it?" "No," said the old woman sadly, and she hung up the telephone. The old woman sat and thought about the shy brown dog who had no collar with a name. Wherever it was, no one would know that it was supposed to come to the old woman's gate every day. That she was supposed to feed it and tell it to go home every day. That things were always supposed to be this way. The shy brown dog had no collar and no name, and no one would ever be able to know these things about it. The old woman made a decision. She locked up Franklin and drove Betsy to the dog catcher's kennel. She said to the dog catcher, "I've come to find my dog." He asked her what color it was. "It's brown," she said. He asked her how old it was. "About a year old," she said. Then he asked her what its name was. The old woman thought a moment. She thought of all the old dear friends with names whom she had outlived. She saw their smiling faces and remembered their lovely names. And she thought how lucky she had been to have known these friends. She thought what a lucky old woman she was. My dog's name is Lucky, she told the dog catcher. He led her to a big yard full of white dogs and black dogs and brown dogs. The old woman looked and looked and looked, and finally she saw her own shy brown dog sitting beside a gate. The dog was looking at Betsy, parked in the driveway. The old woman called out, "Here, Lucky." And at the sound of her voice, the shy brown dog came running. From that day on, Lucky lived with the old woman, and he always came when his name was called. It turned out that Betsy didn't make all dogs sick, and Fred was happy to allow a dog to sit on him. Franklin didn't really mind a little dog hair. And every night, Roxanne was sure to make herself plenty wide enough for a shy, brown, lucky dog. And the old woman who named him.
Why did you want me to listen to this story, Kino?
Well, so you'll pick a dog for a pet. Dogs are great, see? Even the old lady thought so.
Oh, she was afraid of making friends with the dog because she didn't want to be hurt. She'd had people friends, but they got old and died, and she knew she'd be hurt if the dog died.
That's true. How did she make friends with the dog?
Oh, well, she gave him treats. That's why he kept coming back. That happens, you know. If you're nice to animals, they'll like you.
I guess that's the sad part of having pets, so they can get sick or die.
Or they can get lost. I have a book about a girl who loses her dog. Now, where is that book?
You're right. It can be sad when something happens to pets you love, but that's how life is. But you can still be happy to be able to spend some time with them, even if it's just for a short while.
It's too high. I can't reach it.
Why don't I go help him? I've got to go anyway.
Oh,
I'll give this to you.
Okay. Bye-bye, Sharon.
Bye.
Thanks for the stories.
So, have you decided what kind of pet you want?
No, not yet.
Here it is. And I found somebody who will read it to us, too.
Hi, Tina.
Hi, Tina.
How are you?
Good. What a cute dog.
Yeah, come and sit down.
Okay, this is Lost by Paul Brett Johnson and Celeste Lewis, illustrated by Paul Brett Johnson. The day Flag got lost in the desert, Dad and I searched for him till sundown. We found some dog tracks at a watering hole and some other tracks too, big scary ones. But we didn't find Flag. Monday morning, I made a lost dog poster. It said reward, $8.48. That's how much I had in my piggy bank. I hoped it would be enough. Dad took my poster to work and made copies. After school, we drove out into the desert again, tacking them up along the way. Finally, 3 days later, someone called. A lady had found a lost beagle. I couldn't wait till we got to her house. Flag was going to be so happy. But it wasn't Flag. I sat beside the strange dog and stroked his head. I gave him the biscuit I had brought. Before bed, I got out my photos of Flag. I couldn't help crying, but I laughed some too. The picture of Flag catching lima beans was my favorite. That was Flag's best trick. I hate lima beans, so Flag got mine. Every time I threw one in the air, he would catch it. Once he caught 16 in a row. The next day, Dad came home with a big map. It had 1,000,000 squiggly lines that showed every ridge and gully. Dad thought Cave Creek Canyon would be a good place to look for Flag. The canyon was rough going. We had to crawl on all fours over huge rocks and through prickly underbrush. Suddenly, there was a howl that sounded just like Flag. Arr! We started yelling his name. Flag! Flag! We kept on calling and listening, but all we heard was our own voices echoing back at us. At school, I couldn't concentrate, even though we were studying astronomy, which I really like. There was a big cactus just outside the window. It made me think of the desert and Flag. Where was he? I missed him so much. Friday came at last. Dad had promised we could look for Flag again, but the whole weekend turned out to be a big fat zero. All we saw was a pack of javelinas. Dad said they could be mean, so we steered clear. I hated the desert. Next time out, we climbed a fire tower. I knew Flag was somewhere below, looking for me, just as hard as I was looking for him. But where? There was so much ground still to cover. Please, Flag, please don't give up. Later, we met an old prospector. He said he once had a dog that got lost in the desert, but he never found him. He said it didn't look good for Flag. I told him if any dog could make it, Flag could. We gave him our address and phone number, just in case. Friday night, there was a knock on my door. Dad came into the room and sat beside me on the bed. He took my hand. He said we had to talk. I knew then we wouldn't be packing up and heading out to the desert anymore. Flag had been lost almost a month. Dad, please, Flag's still out there, waiting for us to come find him. I know he is. At breakfast, Dad said maybe we should go to the animal shelter and look for another beagle. But I didn't want another beagle. I wanted Flag. Dad was just trying to cheer us both up, I guess. I marked another X on the calendar. I hoped Flag didn't think I had forgotten him. Monday, when I got home from school, there was a truck in the driveway. I recognized the old man we had met in the desert. I began to run. Flag was all scratched up, and he was down to skin and bones. I hated to think what he must have gone through. He was bad off, the prospector said, but he would be fine. When I took Flag in my arms, he wriggled a little and tried to lick my face. I reached in my pocket and showed him what I had been keeping, a dried lima bean. For good luck, I whispered. I never gave up hope. The end.
Oh.
You changed your mind? You'll be my pet?
No, I was just thinking of the picture on the cover of the book. Just think what Flag is feeling. Think for a minute. Can you imagine?
I think he's feeling pretty sad and lonely. He's howling, calling for the girl. You know what I like? Is that she didn't give up. She kept looking for her dog.
Mm-hmm. Well, what do you think, Christy? Do you think you'll want a dog for a pet?
If you give me some more treats, I just might be willing to be your pet for a little bit.
I'll give you some treats if you can do some tricks.
Treats for tricks. All right. What is this? Halloween?
Rub your nose. Cover your ears. Show me your story picks.
Oh, okay, but you help me. Story pick number 1. It's about a boy who would rather be a dog. Ruff, ruff. Read about Derek chasing the cat in Derek's Dog Days.
And my story pick for today is The Pet Person, about a dog who wants a person to be his pet. And it's so funny you'll want to roll over.
Hey, when do I get my treat?
One more trick. Keep a story
In your heart.
Good boy, Kino.
Thank you. Hey, let's do some more.
Fly like an eagle. Good. Hop like a rabbit. Good. Here's your treat.
Thank you.
Today's Storytime books are Grandma's Cat by Helen Ketteman, illustrated by Marcia Lynn Winborn. The Old Woman Who Named Things by Cynthia Ryland, illustrated by Catherine Brown. Lost by Paul Brett Johnson and Celeste Lewis, illustrated by Paul Brett Johnson. Derek's Dog Days by Nancy Lee Charlton, illustrated by Chris L. Demarest. And Pet Person by Jean Willis, pictures by Tony Ross. You can find these and other books at your local library.
Storytime is made possible by Bill Grant and Helen and Peter Bain, so that families everywhere can share the joy of reading with their children. Storytime is a production of KCET Los Angeles.